Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cup Council. How are we all? Hopefully, all of you are having a fantastic Friday, wherever we are around the world. Hopefully, all of you are good. Hopefully, everyone's on a good day. And welcome back to a match preview show. It's been a while since we've done a live one. When I checked, I think it's been over 2 weeks. So, again, I apologize for that. But how are we, chat? Hopefully, everyone is good. And like I said, it is the match preview show for the Liverpool v Manchester City game. In probably what is a title eliminator a little bit, really, considering where Arsenal are at the moment and looking at things. Well, of course, it's early in the season and many things can still happen in this wild league. But, when you look at it, I think a defeat for either team would be devastating in terms of the title hopes. But I think whoever does lose this game, if anyone does lose, I think Liverpool or Manchester City, I think, will probably consider themselves out of the race if they don't already. But again, I'll be interested to know your guys' thoughts down in the comments. Again, let me know your starting 11 predictions, your score predictions, all that good stuff as well down in the comments. And again, how are we, chat? Hopefully everyone's good and everyone is well. But yeah, it is Liverpool v Manchester City. Look, of course, it's one of these games where you look on the fixture list whenever it comes out. It's probably the best competitive game in the league stages. I think when you look at games in the past of Liverpool and City, it's been probably the best quality, I would say, in my opinion, in terms of two teams going at it. But we've seen over for what now, nearly 10 plus years, really. But look, I'm looking forward to the game. Obviously, I think if you said to any Liverpool fan maybe a week or two ago, I think everyone would have been in crisis mode. But of course, 2 wins back to back changes things, and it does change a lot of things, and how Liverpool are prepared now going into this game. And look, should Liverpool easily win this game? No, it'll be very, very difficult. Again, last season was our first win, I think, away to the at the Etihad in the Premier League, I think, since 2015, 2016, which again, one win in 10 years is pretty bad when you consider the fact that we've been chasing Premier League titles against City and so on as well. But again, let me know your guys' thoughts down in the comments. But like we were talking about, Liverpool themselves. Look, in my opinion, the number one task that Liverpool need to do on Sunday is stop this man. Stop Erling Haaland. He's been unbelievable so far in the Premier League season. I think, just quickly looking at the notes I made, 13 Premier League goals, I believe. 13 Premier League goals already this season, which is mental. He's back to that form of I think, what was it, his first season where he just completely destroyed every record going for goal scoring in the Premier League. And look, Erling Haaland has been the main guy for City, of course, getting the goals, because I think when you look and you consider everyone else in the Manchester City team, of course, basing it purely off the Premier League. Again, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players all on one goal. And I think obviously as the title says, but there, must stop Haaland. And I think Liverpool, if they manage to do that, if Liverpool manage to control Erling Haaland and kind of do what we did last season when Haaland didn't have a good game in either game against Liverpool, whether it be at Anfield or of course at the Etihad. I think Liverpool did the right thing last year, and obviously played with a double 10, and for me dominated the game. Even though City had the majority of the possession, I felt like Liverpool controlled the game and how we wanted to play throughout that game last season. And looking at it again, that's the main aim, in my opinion, is beat Manchester City by stopping Erling Haaland. And I think if you do that, of course, City do have goal scorers, and look, obviously they've got Reinders, Foden that can score. Obviously Cherky as well, who's also there, and who's been a main starter now over the last couple of weeks for City. I think if you stop Erling Haaland, you have a very, very good chance of doing that. And when you look at Erling Haaland's games against Virgil van Dijk, Virgil has a pretty good record. I know people straight away go back to the Salzburg game back in 2019, but in my opinion, I think Virgil van Dijk's had a very, very good record against Erling Haaland. And of course, that's going to be the main battle of the weekend. Obviously, Canate as well, I should say. Ibu's had a very good month, I would say, in a Liverpool shirt. Of course, started the season off terribly, but I think the last month, especially, I think he's been really, really good in a Liverpool shirt. But that will be the main battle, in my opinion. I think stopping Erling Haaland, stopping, with Van Dijk, with Canate, will be the major one. And again, how do Liverpool do that? I think we could very well see something similar to like we've seen against Real Madrid, where we press very, very high, but we also stay compact and maybe drop off in a low block potentially. I think Arne Slot spoke about how he didn't want Liverpool giving space to to Vinny Jr. and of course Kylian Mbappe midweek, which again allowed Liverpool to win and obviously control Real Madrid really in that factor. And I think you have to kind of apply the same sort of tactic against Manchester City. Like, you can press them, I think, a little bit high. I don't think City's defense is as good as what it used to be. I know people have said that about Liverpool this season, but personally, I think City's defense is shaky, and look, of course, it is under transition. Donnarumma coming in, who is a fantastic goalkeeper. He's among the world's best, and I think he's made crucial saves already this season. But I look at City's defense. I personally, I think it could be Gorat, and maybe Liverpool might go a bit more counter style against Manchester City. I could be wrong with that, but in my opinion, I think, we did that last season where we played the double 10. We, controlled the midfield, controlled the overload in midfield quite decently, and of course, obviously, I think obviously we beat them on a set piece, and Curtis Jones' goal as well, which I can't remember how that was scored, but again, I think, in an overall perspective, I think that's how you stop Manchester City, because looking at their goals and looking how they work and how they, how Manchester City have gone through the season so far, they've not scored a goal at all from set pieces. All of their goals is from open play. Just looking on SofaScore, literally all of their goals are taken from open play, and again, like I said, Erling Haaland has scored 13 of them goals, but still, the fact that none of them are from set pieces or corners, again, goes to show if you can nullify City in open play, then again, it's a very, very good opportunity for Liverpool to score and, of course, hopefully get the 3 points away from Manchester City, because again, if we were to beat Manchester City, I think that then puts it back, really, that Liverpool are somewhat back a little bit. I know people are a bit skeptical because, again, beating Villa and beating Real Madrid has put a really good feeling around the club. But again, if we were to beat Manchester City on top of that, it'd be a very, very good past week for Liverpool. And then, who knows what could happen with Arsenal. Arsenal could end up losing to Sunderland, who are banging form at the moment. So again, if that gap, realistically, was it 7 points now? If the gap going into the international break can be 4 points, that's something that could be something obtainable for Liverpool to hopefully go on and retain the Premier League title. But again, that's just a hope more than a reality at the moment. But again, I do believe Liverpool can do it, and I think if we deploy the same sort of tactics, I think Liverpool can do it. And to do it in Pep Guardiola's 1,000th game as a manager as well would also be very, very good for us, I'm not going to lie. Also, now, speaking on the Liverpool side of things, again, Arne Slot today, speaking in his press conference, speaking about the game, of course, speaking about injuries. And the main headline for Liverpool is, of course, Alexander Isak is back in training. He was pictured today. Again, Arne Slot did say he would be back in training, and he has been. So, again, you would assume he is fit and available against Manchester City. And I think a lot of people will have question marks around the starting 11, who's going to start, should we keep the same team as Real Madrid? Does Alexander Isak come straight back into the Liverpool team? There'll be question marks around it. Personally, I think he'll be on the bench for Sunday. I don't think it's going to be just an automatic, look, we're going to straight away put him into the team, because at the end of the day, he's been out for a couple of weeks. Not going to, for me, in my opinion, he's not going to just walk in and take Ekitike's spot, which Ekitike, in my opinion, has been very, very good for Liverpool in terms of, build up, and in terms of link up play as well. Him, Wirtz, and Salah, I think, have done quite well over the last couple of games for us. But again, having somebody like Alexander Isak to come off the bench will be huge for us. Especially, for example, Liverpool and 0-0 at a certain point. Bring on Alexander Isak, hopefully gets the winner for us in that aspect of things. And I think, look, for us, having him back is huge as well. Of course, he spoke about Alisson. He spoke about Jeremy Frimpong as well. Obviously, Ali should be back after the international break, which is fantastic news as well. But of course, Jeremy Frimpong's still out injured, unfortunately, which, is a bit frustrating again. But, if Conor Bradley can have the type of game that he did have against Real Madrid, and, that's now the more consistent form that Conor Bradley can, bring to the Liverpool team, then hopefully, that's a standard that's going to stay now for a very, very long time. Because that's the only thing that's been annoying with Conor Bradley so far this season, is the fact that, again, he's not been good and he's not been consistent with anything. But the last two games, Villa, I thought he was okay. But then Real Madrid, I thought he was completely different, in terms of him being way better in terms of, defending Vinny Jr., obviously defending Mbappe as well, but also his build-up play as well, I thought was, 10 times better. And that's the annoying thing about Conor Bradley. Again, he's not consistent. And hopefully, he has the run of games now. Of course, there was question marks around in the summer of, who starts at right back. I think even at the start of the season, even going into the season a bit more, I said to you guys that, in my opinion, I think Liverpool were better off with Jeremy Frimpong at right back, because simply we looked more balanced in terms of, us pushing and us pressing with Jeremy Frimpong in there. But the last two games, hopefully now it's now the boost that he needs. But again, we've seen already this season where he hasn't been great after an okay or decent performance. So again, it's all hopeful with Conor Bradley. But the one thing I would also say, which hello Luke as well. I know a certain somebody will be watching, but hello Luke. No, I think in an overall perspective, the question mark is: does Florian Wirtz keep his place in the team on the left, or will he bring in Cody Gakpo? Look, if you're asking for my opinion, you play the same team that won. I think for me, the best team and the best performance we had was the team on the weekend, on midweek against Madrid. That for me, you keep the same, and that's something we did last season where our team selection was very consistent. Again, we would make the odd change in that, but we were never ones that would change, make 4 or 5 changes, and we've never really been that under Arne Slot, unless of course it's been drastic, or whether or not, he just decides to throw a League Cup game, but I think for me, I would keep Florian Wirtz on the left, and the midfield three the same, because again, I've seen people kind of go oh, well, we've seen the midfield be the midfield, in terms of, against Palace away, Chelsea away as well, the midfield three started. But I think now we're actually seeing Liverpool play in more of a 4-2 build up, instead of this whole one and then shove everyone up top. It's the style that we've been playing at the moment, where we've kind of, against Madrid, we played a 4-2 build-up, and also we bypassed a lot of the build-up where, Mamardashvili would ping it to Mo Salah or ping it to Florian Wirtz, and that worked. And I think that could work against Manchester City as well, when they've got, especially in their wide areas. I think Salah and Wirtz could be very useful in that area. But I think, in my opinion, look, having somebody like Cody Gakpo come off the bench against the tired Man City team, where you can be a bit more direct in the run and the build-up, for example, and obviously Cody pushing inside that he always does from the wing. That, for me, is something we can do a lot better on, especially Cody as well. But I think that is a good ploy to have coming off the bench. Again, you can bring on Isaac as well if needed, or Chiesa to do a good job in that regard as well. But for me, I personally, I would keep the same team as Real Madrid. I don't know about any of you guys in chat or if anyone watching on the repeat. For me, I'd keep the same team and build from there, because I think long term the plan will be maybe drop Szoboszlai deeper, have Vert in the 10, Cody on the left. That's, for me, on paper, Liverpool's potential team, for moving on in the future in the season. But with that, you drop Alexis McAllister, who the last 2 games has been decent for Liverpool. And that's the thing. If Maka is now back, if he's back in full form, which I think against Madrid he was one of the best players on the pitch. Sorry, and I think. If again him with consistency again, because this season he's been poor. Let's not lie around him. Alexis McAllister, I think for me, and I think a lot of people had Maka in world class debates, and having him in like team of the season debates, and would Maka get in the best 11 from last season? In my opinion, he would. But I think this year, on this season, I should say, it's kind of been a roles reverse. I think really, Maka's been kind of poor. And I'm not going to lie, I think Dom Szoboszlai has been Liverpool's best player this season by a mile. I've spoke to a couple of people who was like, myself included, Virgil as well was also in that category. But I think over the last month, I think Dominic Szoboszlai has pushed on and excelled in this Liverpool team now, when we're talking about him being clear as the best player in the team, and he's undroppable, and that's the annoying thing at the minute as well. Probably if you're Florian Wirtz, because again, Szoboszlai is the number 10. It looks like he's going to stay there at the moment, but Dom can't be dropped at all. People talk about right back, centre mid. For me, Dominic Szoboszlai is probably the number 1 name at the minute on the team sheet for Liverpool, and that's the annoying part about it, where Dom is that good, you just can't drop him. And when he's not in the team, it's quite clear you miss him in certain areas. So for me, Dom 100% starts, but I think going long term, and maybe even after the international break, Liverpool might go back to Wirtz, Szoboszlai, Gravenberch. But again, it'll be interesting to see. Certainly for Manchester City, I think it'll be the same midfield 3 of obviously Dom, Maka, and Grav. But I think again, bringing in Florian Wirtz off the left will be 10 times better than having Cody Gakpo, because again, as we've seen against Real Madrid, Florian Wirtz wasn't playing left wing; he was playing everywhere. It was kind of a free roam position, wasn't it? Where again, if you go and look at his touch map in the game. For the whole 90, or for the whole time he was on the pitch, he was everywhere. He wasn't just in one certain specific area. He was literally floating throughout the entire game and the entire 90. So, again, I think Florian Wirtz will start on the left, and I think that's the right decision that Arne Slot should make. But whether or not he does that, and, the meme of, if Arne Slot had prime Liverpool, or any Liverpool team or great Liverpool team, he'd somehow find a way to put Cody Gakpo left wing, which is kind of funny. But I think it should be Florian Wirtz for Manchester City. But speaking of City, as well, like I mentioned in terms of Haaland, the big question mark coming out of City is whether or not Rodri's going to be fit. Now I think Rodri is fit to play, and of course when we played them both times last season, it was quite clear that they obviously, of course, miss Rodri. But again, looking at midweek, they played Nico Gonzalez. I think Rodri come off the bench. Actually, let me double check that. No, he didn't. But I believe, looking at the injury report, he's not injured either. So could be, a decision maker for Pep, and whether or not he goes for a 3 or 4 back. Again, I think he's kind of experimented a little bit at that. Again, I'm not going to sit here and say I watch Manchester City week in, week out, but just looking at how Man City build up at times, again, it's kind of similar to Liverpool, how, Liverpool build a 3 and at the back at times. But look, for me, I think the big thing is stop Erling Haaland. You stop Erling Haaland, Liverpool win the game. So that's the hopeful dream, at least anyway. But for me, score predictions wise, I'm gonna go. I'm going to go Liverpool 2-0. I think we keep Haaland quiet. I think we do exactly the same as what we did against Real Madrid. I think you play a low block, you play counter, you try and build up at times, but I think that's what Liverpool do. Personally, in my opinion, I think that's what we'll do. I think we'll try and nullify Erling Haaland. Again, they do have other threats, like I mentioned multiple times, in terms of Cherky, Foden, Doku as well. But for me, in my opinion, stop Erling Haaland, Liverpool win the game. I'm going to go Liverpool 2-0. Going to go Wirtz and Salah to get the goals for us. And hopefully Liverpool will get all 3 points, fingers crossed, anyway. But again, let me know your guys' thoughts down in the comment section down below if you're watching on the repeat as well. Very intrigued to know your guys' thoughts as well, because again, it would just be of Erling Haaland now to just score 2 goals the way Liverpool previously played. But again, I'm hopeful and praying now we build up from the Real Madrid play anyway. But look, it's a hopeful dream at the moment, and fingers crossed Liverpool can get all 3 points and keep pressure on Arsenal, really, because again, the longer Liverpool keep pressure on Arsenal, maybe they might crack. But to be fair, they've been decent this season so far, at least anyway. But like I said, thank you to everyone that's tuned in for tonight's show. Hopefully you guys have had a fantastic Friday, wherever you are around the world. Like I mentioned as well, there'll be some sort of video out tomorrow as well. Again, I apologize that we haven't been doing lives. We've been doing pre-records quite a lot recently as well, but I thought we'll go live tonight. But I know people will be watching on the repeat as well, so if you are new around here, please do hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and I will see you guys later for another episode. Like I said, might be live tomorrow, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. But I've been Connor from the COP Council. We'll see you guys in a bit. Ta-ra.